There is a word many people speak without realizing it, quietly destroys their wealth, dissolves their opportunities, and pushes abundance further and further away. Before I reveal that word, listen closely, because your entire life is nothing but the outpicturing of your inner conversations. What you whisper within yourself becomes your world. What you repeat with your tongue becomes your fate. You see, every word you speak is a seed, and the moment you utter it, it begins to gather its own kind. It attracts circumstances, people, ideas, and events that match its vibration. You are never a victim of the world outside. You are only ever a victim of your own spoken assumption. And here is the word you must never speak if you truly desire wealth, ease, and financial freedom. I can't. That word is poverty disguised as humility. The moment you say, I can't, you shut the door on the very opportunities the universe is trying to deliver to you. You deny your own power. You tell your subconscious mind, a mind that never argues, to bring you a life where you truly cannot. But the truth is you can. You are the operant power. You are the only creative force in your reality. When you say, I can't afford it, you teach your subconscious that lack is your natural state. When you say, I can't do that, you program limitation into your experience. When you say, I can succeed, you instruct life to prove you right. Your wealth does not begin in your bank account. It begins in your vocabulary. Instead of I can't, speak as the one who already has. Speak from the end. Assume the state of wealth, and let every word you utter be saturated with the feeling of already being rich. Say, I can. I already have. It's done. It's mine. I am wealth itself. The outer world bends to these words. Remember, the law is simple. What you consent to as true becomes your reality. If you consent to limitation through the words you speak, then limitation must appear. If you consent to abundance, then abundance must rush toward you. So from this moment on, guard your tongue. Speak only that which you desire to experience. Do not entertain the old language of lack, not even as a joke, not even for a moment. You are wealthy when you decide to be. You are rich the instant you speak as the rich do. You are abundant the moment you assume the feeling of abundance. Erase I can't from your vocabulary and watch how rapidly your world transforms. Because the universe listens to your every word and obeys. Every word that rises to your lips carries the weight of an assumption you hold about yourself. Most people never realize this, yet it is impossible to speak without revealing the state of consciousness from which the words are born. When someone describes life as difficult or says that nothing ever works out, they are not reporting facts about the world. They are confessing the belief they carry about their own identity and their place within the unfolding of events. Speech is never neutral. Speech is always creative. When you speak, you cast a vote for the reality you believe you occupy, and life responds to that vote with precision, shaping itself to confirm what you already assume to be true. It becomes clear, then, that every phrase shapes the world you walk through. Words do not float into the air and disappear. They sink inward, they imprint the subconscious, and they generate the conditions that match their emotional tone. If someone repeatedly speaks of struggle, life must deliver experiences that justify that struggle. If someone speaks as though they are favored, guided, blessed, and empowered, life responds the same way. The outer world shifts to honor the inner declaration. This is why the way you speak is so important. You are never just describing something. You are revealing your inner state and instructing your subconscious to recreate it again and again. Imagine for a moment that every sentence you speak forms the blueprint of your next experience. How differently would you talk about yourself? How carefully would you choose your phrasing? How deliberately would you shape your inner dialogue? When you internalize this truth, you no longer throw words around casually. You begin to understand that your vocabulary becomes the architecture of your reality. Every time you express certainty, the universe arranges itself to match that certainty. Every time you express doubt, you plant the seed of limitation. This is why your first responsibility is to listen closely to what rises naturally from within. Your speech reveals your state, and your state is destiny in motion. There is another misunderstanding people hold without knowing it. Many continue to speak from the identity they are trying to leave behind. They describe their life from the vantage point of the person they used to be, not the person they intend to become. They speak about lack, limitations, and failures, even while trying to manifest abundance, opportunities, or confidence. This contradiction blocks the very transformation they desire. You cannot speak as the old self and expect the new self to appear. You cannot continue repeating the language of limitation while hoping for expansion. Reality responds to the state you embody, and the state you embody is expressed through your words. Transformation requires a shift in identity, and identity is expressed through speech. When you adopt a new assumption, your language naturally evolves to reflect it. The person who has stepped into abundance does not speak as though opportunities are rare. The person who has accepted success does not speak as though they are struggling. The person who has assumed inner power does not speak as though they are helpless. Speak as the person you intend to be, and the world will shape itself around that identity. Speak as the person you once were, and the world will keep you there. There is a subtle but profound difference between describing your current circumstances and speaking from your desired state. Describing circumstances locks you into them. Speaking from your desired state pulls you toward it. The subconscious does not respond to your present situation. It responds only to the state you claim through your imagination, your feeling, and your words. When you shift your language, you shift your state. When you shift your state, your world begins to reorganize itself in harmony with the new assumption. This is not about pretending or lying to yourself. It is about aligning your speech with the identity you are choosing to inhabit. If you want to embody confidence, you speak in a way that matches that confidence. If you desire prosperity, you speak as someone who knows life supports them. If you crave clarity, you speak as someone who trusts their inner wisdom. The more consistently you speak from the new identity, the faster the old identity dissolves. Words become the bridge between the inner transformation and the outer manifestation. There is a natural momentum that begins once you shift the way you speak. As you consciously choose elevated language, your inner state begins to stabilize in that higher assumption. You start feeling different because the words you speak shape the emotional atmosphere you live within. This emotional atmosphere becomes your new norm, and life starts matching it. People treat you differently. Opportunities appear. Ideas emerge. You notice synchronicities that were previously invisible, all because you stopped allowing the old identity to dictate your speech. This process is powerful because it works even when you are not intentionally trying to manifest something specific. Whenever you speak from confidence, confidence grows. When you speak from abundance, abundance expands. When you speak from clarity, clarity strengthens. The subconscious collects your words and builds a reality that reflects them. Once you understand this, you no longer allow old patterns to guide your vocabulary. You become conscious of the creative power that moves through you every time you open your mouth. There is something liberating about realizing that you are not bound by past versions of yourself. You do not owe loyalty to the language of your old identity. You are free to speak from the future you at any moment. When you do, the present begins to rearrange itself in astonishing ways. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, your new speech emerges effortlessly because it reflects a deeper shift that has taken place within you. You become someone who automatically speaks from possibility rather than limitation, from assurance rather than fear, from abundance rather than lack. This shift is not just about positive thinking. It is about embodiment. When you speak from your chosen identity long enough, it begins to feel like your true self. This feeling is what the subconscious responds to. It treats your inner certainty as fact and produces experiences that align with it. This is why speech is such a powerful tool for self-transformation. It allows you to step into the new state long before the world reflects it. And by stepping into that state, you make the reflection inevitable. As you move forward, remember that your words are not reflections of your life. They are instructions for your life. They are the commands that shape your tomorrow. Each sentence is a doorway to a new possibility. Each phrase contains the seed of a new experience. Speak from the identity you wish to inhabit, and watch how quickly the world rises to meet you. The subconscious is always listening, and it listens in a way far more literal and obedient than most people imagine. It takes everything you say as a personal instruction, a direct command to shape your reality accordingly. It does not interpret. It does not filter. It does not judge whether your words benefit or harm you. It simply accepts them as truth and sets in motion the chain of events necessary to make them real. When someone repeatedly says they are unlucky, unprepared, unworthy, or unable, the subconscious arranges experiences that match this expectation. When someone declares they are capable, guided, supported, or destined for something greater, the subconscious brings that into expression as well. Every phrase becomes a building block of the life you walk through, and the subconscious collects these blocks without resistance. This is why carelessness with language becomes so costly. Many people speak negatively out of habit, unaware that these casual statements are forming the structure of their future circumstances. Even phrases spoken in frustration or as a joke carry creative charge. The subconscious does not understand humor or exaggeration. If the words are spoken with emotional energy, they become accepted as instructions. Someone might say they always struggle, even if they do not truly want to. Someone might say money slips away from them, even if they desire financial ease. Someone might say opportunities never come, even if they long for progress. The subconscious takes each phrase literally and ensures the world reflects it. This is why becoming aware of your speech is becoming aware of your power. Once you recognize that your words are commands rather than commentary, you begin to speak with greater intention. Your vocabulary must begin to align with the life you want, not the one you fear losing or feel trapped within. It is not enough to think positively while continuing to speak words of limitation. The subconscious responds more strongly to what is spoken aloud, especially when spoken with conviction or emotion. You may hold a vision of abundance, but if your daily language expresses struggle or scarcity, the subconscious follows the language, not the vision. It always prioritizes the expression that carries more feeling, and spoken words almost always carry that weight. You might imagine success, but if you continue telling others how difficult everything is, the subconscious hears difficulty as the dominant instruction. If you dream of ease, yet talk endlessly about obstacles, the subconscious understands that obstacles are what you expect and prepares more of them. Aligning your vocabulary with your desired reality does not require dramatic or exaggerated statements. It requires consistency. Speaking as though life supports you, even in small everyday comments, begins to shift the inner atmosphere. Speaking as though opportunities are natural for you, even before they appear, prepares the subconscious to bring them your way. Speaking as though you trust your path, even when you cannot see the entire route, creates a foundation for clarity to unfold. You are not pretending. You are choosing which reality you will reinforce. Words infused with belief carry extraordinary power because they become the blueprint the subconscious follows with unwavering loyalty. There is a quiet strength that comes from speaking in harmony with the reality you want to inhabit. It creates a steady emotional tone within you. When you consistently express certainty, assurance, and expectation of good, you begin to feel those qualities long before they manifest. This feeling is what accelerates creation. The subconscious responds most strongly to the emotional meaning behind your words. When you speak in a way that reflects confidence or abundance, even if you are cultivating those feelings consciously, you plant seeds that grow into the experiences you seek. Over time, your vocabulary becomes second nature. You no longer have to monitor every sentence because your inner state has shifted so deeply that supportive words flow effortlessly. Many people do not realize how significantly their language contradicts their desires. They affirm abundance in their quiet moments, but speak of limitation in conversation with others. They imagine progress in their solitude, but speak of problems when interacting with the world. This contradiction weakens the signal they are sending to the subconscious. It confuses the inner mind and prolongs the manifestation of what they truly want. The solution is not to suppress honest emotion, but to choose words that reflect the direction you intend to move toward rather than the patterns you are leaving behind. When you make this shift, your vocabulary becomes a tool of creation rather than a reinforcement of old realities. As you begin to speak from clarity, empowerment, and expectation of good, your world gradually responds. New opportunities appear. People treat you differently. Ideas arise from within that would not have surfaced under the weight of limiting speech. You start to perceive possibilities that were previously hidden from view. This is the natural movement of consciousness. When speech aligns with intention, you are giving your subconscious a clear, unified message, and it obeys by bringing your outer world into harmony with your inner language. When your vocabulary matches the life you choose, you create an environment where nothing contradicts your desires. Your words point in one direction. Your thoughts move in one direction. Your emotions begin to gather in that same direction. The subconscious finally receives a single powerful instruction rather than mixed signals. This is when manifestation becomes faster, clearer, and more consistent. Your speech becomes the guiding force that shapes your destiny. and every phrase becomes a step onto the path you have chosen. Assuming the end before you speak is one of the most transformative practices you can adopt because it shifts the entire foundation from which your words are formed. Instead of reacting to visible circumstances, you begin to speak from the invisible state you have already claimed. When you do this, your speech carries a different energy. It no longer reflects doubt or confusion. It reflects certainty, completion, and inner knowing. The moment you assume the end, you step into the emotional atmosphere of the fulfilled desire, and your words begin to flow naturally from that state. This changes everything. You are no longer trying to convince yourself. You are expressing what already feels real within you. The world around you may not yet reflect the new state, but your inner world already has. And the subconscious responds to that inner shift far more powerfully than it responds to anything external. Speaking from the end is not about repeating empty affirmations. It is about allowing your words to rise from the feeling of already having what you want. When you feel successful, your speech reflects assurance. When you feel wealthy, your words reflect comfort and ease. When you feel loved, your conversations reflect warmth and confidence. This is why the inner assumption is so important. It becomes the source of your language. If the inner feeling is not present, the words lack the emotional force needed to impress the subconscious. But when the inner feeling is established first, even lightly, the words you speak become creative commands. They carry the resonance of the fulfilled state, and the subconscious begins arranging your world accordingly. This practice becomes especially powerful in moments when the outer world contradicts your desire. Instead of reacting to appearances, you return to the inner state and speak from the reality you have chosen. This response stabilizes you. It prevents you from falling back into the language of the old self. When everything in the external world seems slow or uncertain, the simple act of speaking from the assumed end reinforces your inner conviction. You become rooted in the new state rather than swayed by temporary conditions. Over time, this consistency shapes the world around you. The outer reality has no choice but to conform to the inner narrative you have sustained through your words and feelings. There's another dimension to this practice that many overlook. When you speak from the fulfilled state, you deny with your tongue the power of anything that contradicts your desire. You stop giving energy to experiences you no longer wish to create. You stop reinforcing stories that do not serve you. You stop repeating assumptions that belong to an identity you are outgrowing. Every time you speak from the end, you withdraw your attention from the version of yourself that struggled, doubted, or felt limited. You are refusing to give life to the old pattern. Instead, you are feeding the new reality through the power of your spoken commitment. This is why what you deny through speech is just as important as what you affirm. When you stop telling stories of difficulty, you stop recreating difficulty. When you stop speaking about your limitations, you stop anchoring them into your subconscious. When you stop describing yourself in ways that diminish your power, you free the subconscious to form a new self-concept. People often unknowingly keep themselves trapped in old patterns because they keep retelling the same narratives. Every repetition strengthens the identity they are trying to escape. Breaking this cycle requires conscious refusal to speak from the old state. The moment you stop feeding those stories, they begin to dissolve. Speaking from the end means choosing not to give your voice to anything that contradicts your chosen identity. Even if an old pattern appears in your experience, you do not have to give it meaning by repeating it aloud. You acknowledge what you want to strengthen, not what you want to eliminate. Your attention becomes aligned with your intention, and your words reflect that alignment. Silence becomes a tool as powerful as speech when used consciously. Sometimes refusing to speak about something removes its power faster than any affirmation could. You simply decline to reinforce the old state with your words, and the subconscious begins to reshape your world based on what you no longer validate. As you practice this consistently, you will notice a remarkable shift in your inner atmosphere. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotions become steadier. Your sense of direction strengthens. Every time you choose the language of the fulfilled state, you deepen your embodiment of it. Over time, this becomes natural. You no longer have to monitor your words because the inner state has become stable. You automatically speak from the identity you have claimed. The world begins to reflect this identity more and more convincingly, not because you forced anything, but because you chose your speech with intention and refused to empower anything that contradicted your desire. This way of speaking transforms the relationship between your inner and outer world. Instead of describing what is, you declare what will be through the authority of your inner assumption. Instead of reacting to circumstances, you generate new ones through the tone of your speech. Instead of repeating old stories, you create new ones and anchor them through the power of your voice. With time, your world begins to respond so consistently that speaking from the end becomes the most natural thing in the world. You no longer defend your desire. You embody it. You no longer fight against old conditions. You withdraw speech from them until they fade. Your words shape the reality you walk into, and the subconscious follows your direction with absolute loyalty. The conversations that unfold quietly within you are far more influential than most people ever notice. These inner dialogues run throughout the day, shaping how you interpret events, how you react to challenges, and how you perceive yourself. They build the emotional climate you live in long before any outer circumstance appears. Even when your outer speech seems positive, if your inner conversations are filled with doubt, fear, or contradiction, the subconscious obeys the inner voice first. It is the persistent whisper behind your thoughts that determines the quality of your reality. This inner dialogue is the true narrator of your life, and every narrative it repeats becomes the script the subconscious uses to bring your experiences into form. As your awareness deepens, you begin to notice how often the inner voice repeats old stories without your conscious permission. It replays memories of limitation, echoes fears from the past, and reinforces beliefs you no longer want to live by. When these inner conversations run unchecked, they create an emotional atmosphere that influences every decision, every perception, and every expectation. Yet the moment you recognize that this inner voice can be redirected, you discover one of the most profound aspects of creation. You can choose the tone of your inner dialogue. You can choose the theme, the perspective, the assumptions. The subconscious accepts these silent conversations as evidence of the reality you expect to experience. When your inner speech aligns with your desire, it becomes a creative force that reshapes your world from the inside out. This practice does not require force or struggle. It begins with awareness. Notice the inner voice when it starts repeating doubt. Notice when it predicts problems or expects disappointment. In that moment, you have the power to shift it. You replace the old conversation with one that reflects your chosen state. You do not argue with the old thoughts. You simply redirect the inner voice to speak from the identity you intend to embody. Over time, this new inner dialogue becomes familiar. It becomes natural. It becomes the background tone of your day. When this happens, you begin to experience a calm and steady confidence that remains even when circumstances appear uncertain. The subconscious follows the new narrative and arranges your outer life to match the inner story you have chosen. The more consistently your inner conversations reflect the reality you desire, the less you feel the need to monitor your outer words. Both become aligned. You no longer struggle to maintain a positive tone because your inner world is already living in the state of fulfillment. The outer speech becomes an effortless extension of the inner state. This harmony between inner and outer expression is what accelerates manifestation. It creates a unified message that the subconscious follows with clarity. When your thoughts, feelings, and words all point in the same direction, the desired outcome becomes inevitable. You reach another level of creative power when you stop describing your life and begin commanding it. Most people believe their job is to report what is happening around them, but doing so only reinforces the current state. Descriptions have no creative power unless they are aligned with your desire. Reporting difficulties keeps you tied to them. Describing limitations keeps them alive. Speaking endlessly about problems solidifies them in consciousness. Creation begins when you stop giving so much attention to what already exists and start giving energy to what you choose to bring into existence. You shift from commentary to direction. You shift from observation to authorship. Commanding your reality does not mean forcing outcomes. It means speaking from the authority of your inner state. You begin to phrase your words in a way that reflects certainty, progression, and inner alignment. You speak as someone who trusts their path. You speak as someone who expects good things. You speak as someone who knows their inner world shapes their outer experiences. Even small shifts in wording can redirect the course of your life. When you stop saying you do not know what to do, you open the way for clarity. When you stop saying nothing ever works out, you open the way for solutions. When you stop giving your voice to stories of struggle, you make room for a new narrative that uplifts you. Creating your life through intentional speech becomes a natural part of your identity. Your words are no longer reactions to circumstances. They become deliberate choices that guide the unfolding of your experience. You speak in alignment with your desires rather than the patterns of the past. Over time, you begin to notice how your language shapes the opportunities that appear. You notice how people respond differently when your words carry confidence instead of doubt. You notice how your environment shifts to match your new expectations. Speaking with intention becomes a daily act of creation. Each sentence becomes an anchor for the reality you are stepping into. When you stop describing and start directing, you take full ownership of your creative power. You recognize that the world does not define you. You define your experience through the state you hold and the words you choose. This realization brings freedom, clarity, and inner strength. You no longer feel bound by circumstances because you understand that circumstances are temporary reflections of old assumptions. You are always free to create something new, and your voice becomes the tool through which that new creation takes shape. As you continue refining your inner and outer speech, you will notice a profound shift in how you move through life. You feel more grounded, more capable, more aligned with your desires. You carry a sense of quiet authority that requires no effort. You begin to trust your inner guidance And this trust shapes your words in ways that transform your path. Every day becomes an opportunity to choose the narrative you want to live. Every moment becomes a chance to speak from the identity you are becoming. And as your language evolves, your world evolves with it, responding faithfully to the story you choose to tell within yourself and express through your voice.